welcome back to Chat Shit. That's round 19 in the books. We had multiple finals-like matches. We had the new Hawthorn-Port Adelaide rivalry. We had West Coast reaching new lows, all of which we'll talk about later. But first, we're going to get into our game of the round, Freo, with an enormous result against Collingwood.
Well, it was the late game kings, Collingwood, that did drop this game in the end. They had the ball in the hands of Jamie Elliott with about a minute and a half to go. No one else on the field could want the ball in the hands more, and he kicked that behind to level the game. And then Freo went down the other end, and Shea Bolton obviously kicked that behind. Huge for Freo season. You'd think they're probably locked into the 8 now. It's going to be very tough to fall out with the fixtures they have remaining. Bit of a killer for the Swans, so we kind of felt it. We were messaging as well.
We needed, if there's a team that we need to drop that has a better chance of dropping off, it was Fremantle, but not anymore.
Yeah, I mean, Nick Dacos had 43 touches. He was deployed to half-back. I don't know if there was talk in the week before about managing his minutes. Maybe that was made a point in managing his game time, just putting him in half-back, a little less intensity. But in the end, I mean, Sarong, we'll talk about Voss a little bit later, I'm sure, but they had awesome games and really took it away from Collingwood in the last quarter.
Yeah, as I've been saying throughout the year, even when Freo was struggling, I think this list has the potential to be up there with the very, very best in 2025. And when we look at this ladder right now, a win like that could easily be the difference between Freo squeezing into top 4 and not making the 8.
100%.
Like, this is how close the ladder's going to be from about 3rd to 9th, and absolutely enormous for them. Less consequential for Collingwood because of all the good work they've done throughout the year. They'll learn from this. We're not too worried about them. But now we're going to jump into our top 5 players of the round.
Absolutely pissing down here at the top. Jesus! Usain Bolt wouldn't get him now.
The legend becomes immortal.
Now, it's almost like we have it on a record player each week when we say this is the hardest week to possibly pick the top 5 players of the round. But seriously, I think this might have been the hardest to ever pick a top 5. I don't have Tim Taranto in my top 5, and I think any other week he probably would have been in the top 5.
Monstrous performance.
Absolutely ridiculous performance in this week, which I'm going to talk a little bit about later. But in my number 5, I had Patrick Voss, who really got his hands. He had about 3 different guys marking across the game. Destroyed Darcy Moore at the start. Quaynor had to go in the middle. Maynard had to go at him in the last quarter, and he got hold of all of them. I know he's a player that plays with real passion and fight, but we didn't really think he had a game like this in his locker. 6 goals, wins a finals type game. Was on Essendon's list for several years. What they could do with a guy like this.
Just everything you see in the comp points to Essendon being managed so poorly.
But huge respect to him. 6 goals, career high, and deserves to be in the top 5, I think.
What a performance. I couldn't squeeze him in this week. I don't know how.
Those were the levels this week.
This might be the game of his career, who knows, but I couldn't find a way to squeeze him in. And number 5, I had Tim Taranto.
Okay.
I was umming and ahhing.
Yeah.
I know you might talk about some of the Richmond players later, so I'll leave that there, except for Taranto. I think there's been some disparaging things said about him by Kane Corns in the media.
Not top 250 players in the comp.
It's some very silly stuff because he's had deficiencies in his game like any young player has. He just wasn't the best ball user, but it's something that I think is nowhere near as much the case anymore. He's a frequent goal kicker in a team that struggles to kick goals out of their mid, and he does it out of their midfield, and he is just an elite ball winner in the competition. Aiden just let me know that he's now top 20 in the League for Coaches votes, and for a team that's hardly winning games, that's incredibly impressive.
It's really tough to stand out in a bad team because you might get easier ball in a worse team, which is why Gary Ablett Jr. gets such respect for what he did at Gold Coast, because he had 2 or 3 guys who paid so much attention to him each week, and he still put out those numbers week in, week out.
Yep.
So for Tim Taranto to do what he's doing right now, imagine if he was playing on a good team.
Yeah.
He'd be getting the ball a lot easier. His distribution, his disposal efficiency would probably be a lot higher. But yeah, big respect. I wish I had him in my top 5. At my number 4, I had Alex Neil-Bullen. And he's just, again, we talk about it every week. There are these guys that you love to have at your club. The guys who are versatile, run all day. But 3 goals, 30 disposals at 80%. I mean...
2 goal assists, 12 score involvements.
It's a monstrous performance in a huge game where Adelaide took the game away from them in the first half, which was a huge game for Gold Coast because they have some relatively tough fixtures coming up. They're going to want to win that, hopefully make a push towards top 4 for them. But Adelaide could potentially get a top 2 finish with how they're playing at the moment and the wins that they're picking up. I think they might have the best record against the top 8 as well. So they're really setting themselves up for finals. And Neil Bullen, the role players like this, if you can keep getting more and more out of them, they're a huge chance for the flag.
And when you look at their profile this year in terms of points scored and points conceded, they're the only team in the league that's top 3 for both points scored and points against. And they have the best percentage in the league, and that's why. I have Alex Neil Bullen at 4 as well. So I'll waffle a bit more because I absolutely love this guy. And if you're looking at that Adelaide 6-man attack, Neil Bullen is probably number 6 on the ranking. You've got 3 elite key forwards that all bring something different and bring something incredible. And then you've got Ben Keys, Isaac Rankin, not even Isaac Rankin, Ben Keys and Josh Rochelle, who are both, have a chance to make a charge at an All-Australian small forward position. And then you add Isaac Rankin to that. And Alex Neil Bullen is the underrated one who just tackles hard, pressure acts, assists goals, and then pops up every now and again. And then this game, he took centre stage, and you love to see it.
Yeah, I'll go on to my number 3, Idnasaya Wangani-Milera, and they finally gave him a lot of game time in the middle. And look, this guy's an All-Australian midfielder. At least I think he's gonna probably move off halfback eventually. He's gonna be a full-time midfielder. But St Kilda need to just throw a blank check at him. They cannot afford to lose. They cannot afford to lose this guy. 1.7 million they're offering Tom Ducote, potentially rising to 1.8. Give this guy whatever he wants because he's one of the stars, one of the best players in the competition, and he showed it again here.
He might be the smoothest and most natural footballer I've ever seen at such a young age.
Where he glides on the field when he's got the ball and laces out, the ball doesn't go above head height. It's unreal.
Beautiful set shot for goal as well. I have him at number 2 this week. He's doing it week after week. St Kilda there's no player in the comp right now where their teammates just want to get the ball in a player's hands like him, and there's good reason for it. And this performance showed it. And my number 3 was Cozzy Pickett. Do you have him?
I have a number 2.
So Cozzy Pickett, I think he's on a team similar to Taranto. We're talking about a player shining in a team that's struggling. That's Cozzy Pickett this year on Melbourne. Has always been a very talented player, but hasn't really reached heights such as All-Australian honours. I'm not sure if he's ever made the 40-man squad even. But this year, he'll be making that 40-man squad, and it'll be really hard to keep him out of that 22.
Well, he's played 15 games this year. He's averaging 20 disposals and has 35 goals. So he's almost averaging 20 disposals and 2 goals a game. So he's going to make a serious charge to make that final All-Australian team. I think he's probably a lock. You definitely say he's a lock, I think, for that 40-man squad. But, I mean, there was that... I don't know if you've seen it, but there was that 2-minute period where he did a kick from both sides of the boundary, where he went the snap on one side, he went the banana on the other side within 2 minutes of each other from about 40 metres out, which was ridiculous talent. It was really scary what he's doing in games. He's a tough... You can't really tag him. He's really tough, especially when he moves through stoppage. Ridiculous performance. 5 goals, 23 touches.
In the advanced stats, they say he's spending more midfield time than he is forward time this year. So classified as a midfielder, and Isaac Heaney is the second highest scoring midfielder this season. The only one ahead of him is Cozzy Pickett. And then I think that moves us on to our number 1 player for the round, Isaac Heaney. I just assume it's yours as well. I'd say performance of the season, arguably. Maybe pipped by other performances, maybe less impressive, but in bigger games.
I understand the excuse saying it was only North Melbourne, but no one else has done that. No one else has got 5 goals and 34 touches. And when Cox took him off,
13 clearances.
And Cox took him off for the last 6 minutes of the game. You could hear the groan in the crowd when he ran off after kicking the 5th goal. But I mean, at 85% as well, the way he can win his own ball, and he's a seriously unique player. What he can do around the ball and in the forward 50, you'd think he can outmark anyone. The way he can get up and really take it. But it's a joy to have him in your team because I'd hate to be playing against him.
Yeah, he's a player that moves about as well as Wangani-Milera and has that sort of skill set, or just about. But then he's as tough as any player in the comp. He's impossible to tackle, impossible to beat in a one-on-one contest.
Yeah, and as Pendlebury had that basketball background, Isaac Heaney's got the rugby league background, so maybe that's the why it's so impossible to tackle. But we'll move on to the next segment, which is guys who might get their first ever All-Australian.
I've made a distinction here between the locks. I've got 4 blokes that I think are locked to get their first All-Australian blazer, and then 4 guys that I almost want to say are locks. There will probably be more than 8 guys. There's usually somewhere from 8 to 12 guys to get their first blazer. I reckon the absolute locks are Nasiah Wangani-Milera.
Yeah,
aforementioned.
Yeah.
He'll be on that half back line. Noah Anderson.
Yeah, could be the captain.
Could be the captain.
Yeah.
He'll be in that midfield. Jamie Elliott.
Ooh,
He's
okay,
never even been in the 40-man squad.
Career
He's
best season.
locked into that forward pocket.
Yeah.
And I think Ed Richards is locked for an
100%,
All-Australian.
100%.
Yep, and I don't think he's really tailed off much in the second half of the year. I think we're just used to it.
And I think Bont has sort of overshadowed a bit of his performances in the second half of the year because he's still dropping performance after performance week in, week out.
Yeah,
across the whole season, he's still the number one rated player average in the competition.
Yeah, he's just continuing to get it done, just plays whatever role's needed and does it at an elite level. Then 4 guys I think are on the brink of locks. Cozzy Pickett that we just mentioned, I think the overwhelming chance that he makes that All-Australian team. Been a while since we've had a guy playing more than 50% midfield time, and he'll probably kick 40 plus goals this year.
Yeah.
Phenomenal stuff. Hugh McCluggage, I think it's finally time.
Yeah.
This will be, or he might have already had 5 40-man squads in his young career. He has been at the top level of midfielders in the league since maybe his second or third year in the league. He's so skilled, he's tougher than he looks, and just contributes to winning performances for Brisbane. I think this is the year that he gets recognised with an All-Australian. The third one is Matt Rowell.
Ooh, yeah. That's a tough position to break into.
You talk about unique players like Isaac Heaney. Matt Rowell's just as unique with how much of an absolute dog he is in the contest. And he's to have that much impact and also be second in the competition in tackles per game. Huge efforts every single week from him. And then the fourth for me is Bailey Smith. It's, there have been parts of the year where he's looked like the number one name on the All-Australian sheet, and there have been recent times where he's missed a couple of games with laid outs and hasn't quite been at his best. Maybe opponents are starting to pay some attention to him. So it'll be interesting to see how the rest of the season goes, which will dictate whether he gets that first All-Australian blazer.
I think recency bias is honestly quite a scary thing when we think about this. I think if you flip Bailey Smith's season on its head and you put his last 3 performances at the start of the season and then you put all that ridiculous run of performances now, you'd say 100% he's probably a lock, but it's the fact that it's happened so recently. Grundy, for example, he's another one. You flip his season on its head, now we're saying he's making a charge, he's working his way to a lock in the All-Australian team if he keeps dishing out these performances. But his first 6 or 7 weeks were very, very average. And then since then, he's kind of taken off. So it just depends how the selectors see the entire season, if that recency bias is in their head. Yeah,
and let us know in the comments, who do you think we've not named? There are others that I know I left out. Jordan Clark, for example.
Oh, yeah.
He does not have an All-Australian yet, and he's a phenomenal player, could easily make the team. I think a lot of people have him in their back pocket or their half-back line, but let us know in the comments.
Let's move on to hits and misses.
My favourite performance of the season, my favourite individual performance was Maurice Rioli Jr.
Gotta love it.
I'm getting chills down my spine just thinking of this performance. Richmond have the 2 best chase down tackles of the season, by the way. Tom Brown to win a match, and Maurice Rioli about a 70-metre run, started 30 metres behind.
And just all on top of that, he's also probably done Smother of the Year.
Yeah, in the same game.
As well, just a little bit later.
In the same month that a new Superman movie has been released, Maurice Rioli making a Superman dive to make Smother of the season. He is just an absolute effort, heart and soul, playing for the badge type player. Any coach would love to try to develop him into a regular forward pocket player. I think he's got such a size disadvantage, but he does everything he can to contribute to his team, and I think he'll be a player that makes it through this Richmond rebuild.
Don't you love a chase down tackle?
Yeah.
My God. And the footage is so good. There's one angle where you can see the footage from in front where you can see Rioli chasing him down and the focus on his face. Like he was not going to let him get away. And the last second when he dives out and grabs his shirt, just
full length, just to get a little pinch of the shirt.
100%. And I love it. And there's a lot of times in games where you see small forwards chase down and it doesn't actually happen. There's a couple times in the season when we get something like this and the distance he covered. Oh, it's probably the best thing in footy. That and probably a good specky.
Yeah, and something like that just shows you have 22 guys in your team that are all motivated and give the same sort of effort as Maurice Rioli gives in his average game. You're unstoppable, really, if all your players are playing like that.
I think this passes really well into my hit because I had the whole club Richmond as my hit. They've won 2 in a row. Like we said earlier, Toronto's 20th in the coaches' votes and unlucky to miss out on my top 5 players of the round. They dominated West Coast on the home patch, who should probably be a couple years ahead of them in the rebuild. They're ahead of North Melbourne on points at this stage of the season, who we've talked about repeatedly having all of these stars.
Yeah.
They're level on points with St Kilda, who some people had making the top 8 at the start of the season. Loads of talks about them potentially not winning a game this season. So just a shout out to Adam Uze and the entire young Richmond team for well exceeding expectations this year.
Yeah, I'd be so disappointed if Adam Uze doesn't get given a fair crack, because I think, with the list that he's been given, there's not a coach in the world that would be able to do any better than he's really doing right now. Maybe one game or so better, but I think he's doing a great job. The players seem to be not losing hope, not losing motivation game to game, and you're excited for where this list can go. We're seeing some stars emerge.
But how good is it when players just apply themselves and put a bit of effort in? You get these sort of performances. If Richmond could have finished on 4 points this year, and you would have said, okay, you know what, it's just the start of their rebuild. It's okay, they're going to improve next year. But what they've done this year gives the fans high hopes for what's to come in the next few years.
Absolutely. Now my miss, it's about the Swans, but we won by 31 points. My miss is that no one is helping us out.
Okay.
I mean,
I was wondering where that was going.
Of course it's on ourselves that we got ourselves to whatever it was, 4 wins, 6 losses, or 4 wins, 7 losses it was. But, geez, can we get some help?
Yeah.
We're doing everything we can to be a fairy tale story, get back in the top 8. 3 wins in a row and 5 from 6, I believe. But, yeah, just every time we need a team to get the job done for us, a couple of teams to start dropping points, Fremantle just win by 1 point. Collingwood can't help us out.
Yeah.
You guys have been Iron Men all year, and you can't just help us out this one time. And then at least Adelaide helped us out with the win over Gold Coast. Except Hawthorn get the win this week. GWS get the win. Geelong get the win. The teams that we sort of need to be faltering, they're all succeeding. And credit to the depth of the very, very strong teams in the league right now. You'd argue there's 7-8 teams this year that would be top 4 in most seasons, but it sucks as a Swans fan.
Yeah, the window does look like it's unfortunately closing. I mean, we're going to be at the game on Friday night against GWS at NG Stadium. And I mean, the Swans just need to keep winning to keep ticking the season over, and we just hope that results go our way if the Swans can keep doing their job. My miss is just a quick one. It's just the disastrous scheduling of games for a large part of this year. 6 out of 7 of Essendon's final games will be primetime games. Over the entire year, the Bombers were given the outright most Thursday night games and equal most Friday night games, despite missing finals last year. Not exactly how the fixtures are made in the AFL this year. I thought it was to do with previous year finishing on the table. But they could definitely benefit from probably having a look over the system and how that all works.
Essendon has a lower percentage this year than North Melbourne.
Yeah, so
they're sitting on a percentage of 75
and we know they have a significant amount of injuries, but they decided the times of the fixtures for the second half of the year only relatively recently, and they still repeatedly gave them these primetime games, which a lot of fans, even Essendon fans, have joked about being disappointed about having all these primetime games. But we're moving to the next segment in the Footy Pyramid. We have one out in the pyramid this week. It's Sam Darcy. Again, didn't really have his greatest game. It's probably because he's getting so much attention. Also, the reason why Norton's being allowed to fly and probably being in career best form. But it's a couple weeks now where he's really struggled. And there's a lot of players who deserve to be in this top 15 who are flying in their own right. Which means one person has to come in. And on the most recent video, we had this comment, which questioned about Sarong not being in the pyramid. But He was one of the best players on the field in this finals type game, and he's now in my top 15. Joining him in the 5th tier, Callahan's going to hold his spot. Max Holmes is going to hold his spot. Hugh McCluggage is going to hold his spot. And Zach Butters is going to move down a tier after he's comfortably beaten by the tag. Moving up a tier, Jordan Dawson's going to move down a tier. Didn't have a bad game. Just other players are performing better than him in a lower tier. Nasai Wangani Malira is going to move up a tier. Jeremy Cameron's going to hold his spot. I know he kicked 5 goals, but just wait for the names that are on the tiers above him. And Matt Rowell's going to move up a tier, now sitting in the 4th tier. Moving into the 3rd tier, moving up a tier was Isaac Heaney. How could he not move up? Brodie Grundy's going to hold his spot in the 3rd tier. 7th in the coaches' votes, by the way.
They're an absolute 2-man team of assassins right now.
I don't know if you've seen the footage as well. Before Heaney Grundy tapped it to Heaney and then Heaney snapped. if you see the 5 or 10 seconds before that footage, Heaney sort of looks at Grundy before Grundy was running over, and he goes like that. So it was a plan, and you could see they figured it out just before it happened, worked to perfection. And we saw Grundy the last couple of weeks with Errol. But yeah, he's 7th in the coaches' votes, top 6 player in the competition right now for me. And Noah Anderson's going to move down a tier. Again, didn't have a bad performance, just someone else on the lower tier put in a ridiculous performance. Moving into the second tier, Ed Richards is going to hold his spot, just continues to tick it over, and Nick Dacos is going to move up a tier again, 43 touches, and you could say, played a halfback or was it kickouts? Only 3 kickouts, so he still did have a lot of damage and kicked a goal as well. Probably unlucky, to miss out of the top 5, having 43 touches and a goal. And moving into the top of the pyramid, holding his spot, and looks like he's going to hold it for the rest of the season, is Bontempelli. That's the pyramid in front of you on the screen. Let me know if you'd have anyone else in it, if you'd take anyone else out. But yeah, it's getting tougher and tougher to break into each week.
And now the power rankings. As we've been doing in recent weeks, the power rankings are quite established at this point. We know how good these teams are by now. And so I'm just going to walk you through the changes. Carlton jump Melbourne, just 1 spot with the big win that they got over Melbourne. I say big, but it's probably big for team morale. Then I've got Bulldogs dropping into 10th, with Sydney jumping into 9th. I think Bulldogs obviously are in a much better place to make finals because of form earlier on in the season, but the Swans, 3 in a row, playing really, really good footy. No one would want to play them if they snuck into finals, whereas Bulldogs 1-8 against the good teams in the competition. And yeah, I think that they're probably the easiest matchup if they make the top 8. Then you've got Gold Coast dropping to 8th, dropping a few spots actually with a large loss, and it was concerning. Not a goal kicked until the third quarter.
First time in their history as well, and considering they played their first couple of seasons with a bunch of 18-year-olds running around, it's a pretty special record to break now.
And it's pretty funny that the week before, they didn't concede a goal until the third quarter against Collingwood.
Yeah,
so pretty interesting stuff that's going on over at Gold Coast. Maybe they're just getting a little bit nervous. They don't know what to do. They're on the road to finals, and they don't know how they're meant to deal with that, because we're getting fantastic quarters, fantastic games, and then some pretty awful showings like we saw against Adelaide just then. Then you've got Fremantle. They jump up to 6. Hawthorn stay at 7. And then, Fremantle just phenomenal form right now. 2 huge wins in a row. They beat Hawthorn, then they beat Collingwood. What more can you ask of them? Then I have Adelaide jumping Geelong. Geelong won their game, obviously, but Adelaide are so impressive right now. As I mentioned earlier in the comp, that profile, they're the only team in the comp that's top 3, both going forward and defending the goals. And you think about that defence. Second best defence in the competition, and not a single household name back there. Not a single one. You've just got guys that have just developed in such a major way this year. Mitch Hinge, Josh Worrell, Mark Keane has been an absolute stalwart back there. And then Rory Laird has really shored up their distribution from the back. So you got to respect what Adelaide are doing all over the ground.
I like it. Let us know what you think of the power rankings, and we'll see you all on the next one.